Welcome to episode 3 of Fly on the Wall Conversations. Today I'm joined by my good friend and one of the best designers I personally know, Shaun Wellens. Shaun is head of design at Apptronik, working on the next generation of real-world robots. Previous to that, Shaun was a visualization lead at Arrival, a state-of-the-art electric vehicle manufacturer. Shaun has an extensive background in industrial design, which lays the foundation for his minimalist and functional approach to design. And if you're unfamiliar with Shaun's work, he had the most intricate eye for detail, powerful shapes, clean forms, and carefully crafted designs that range from vehicles, mechanical objects, to robots that always serve a deep and meaningful purpose, function, and story to be told. Shaun, welcome, and thanks for joining me for a chat.
Thanks for having me, man. It's good to see you.
Likewise. So we've had a lot of great chats in the past, but I think as a lot of my audience are probably going to be more concept artists and designers, I think it would be worthwhile if you can give like a little bit of a brief intro to what you do.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm head of design at a robotics company in Austin, Texas, which is a very cool city. And I don't know, it's strange. I feel like humanoids have just kind of sprung up out of nowhere. For the longest time, my plan was to go, as you know, was to start designing robots for the entertainment space. And then, sort of out of nowhere, really, I got a call asking if I'd be interested in joining Apptronik. They're making these humanoid robots, and so yeah, I flew out there, had a look at what was going on, and and I've been there for 2.5 years now, and it's a crazy experience, and it's crazy sort of how familiarized we've all become by robots in such a short space of time. 3 years ago, I don't think anybody really imagined humanoid robots were going to be a part of everyday life, and very quickly they're sort of becoming this very real thing. So yeah, super interesting space to be a part of. And when you're designing, not that I was designing robots for the entertainment space, but that was kind of when I was doing personal humanoid designs, that was really the thing that I was aiming towards. And when you're doing that, you have a good understanding of different points of articulation and range of motion and that kind of thing, but it's hard to really wrap your head around how complicated these things are and how large of a problem it is that we need to solve. I've been there for around 2.5 years now. I was there for 5 or 6 months as industrial design lead, and then after that I was asked if I would become head of industrial design. And I've had the privilege of building my own team, in that I get to choose who I work with. Is such a privilege. And some of the people that I work with are it's the best design team that I've been a part of, in terms of both not just skill but character. Very little ego, and everybody's acutely aware of what it is that we're doing, and nobody's taking it for granted. Whether it's the hours that we're putting in inside and outside of work to be the best versions of ourselves that we can be. Because again, it's like being a part of a humanoid robotics company is one thing, but to be a part of a humanoid robotics company at this time in the industry, it'll never happen again. And so we're all very aware of the weight of that, I suppose. So yeah, building the team, and then now working on my second generation of robots at the company. So very exciting, and as we were talking about a little while ago, very stressful as well.
Yes. But, yeah, it's like incredible. Like, again, like I'm fortunate to be friends with you and to see your journey progress. And I really do put that down, and I know you're humble, and I'm going to give you a lot of compliments here, but your intricate eye for detail, like the high standards and pressure that you put on yourself to be the best designer that you can be, I think have, from the outside, have led you to the position that you're in. Like, I think it's just incredible that you started off, well, not even started off, sorry, like you were trying to then make a transition into entertainment design and to design robots for fictional worlds. And here we are, like your work is so good that you got headhunted to design real robots that are basically going to be in, you know, people's homes, which is just incredible. And the talk today is going to be, like, I think a good one for us to discuss, and we've talked about it a lot in the past, is like, why does good design matter? Why does good design matter? And it would be good to just get deep into that. And like, it might be quite a vague question, but like, why is design important to you?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think the context matters, because you just mentioned, you know, the original plan was to design robots for films, right? And then it became robots for the real world. Whether that is, and there's, I mean, you know, the market is set to be the largest market that the world has ever seen, which is difficult to wrap your head around. So you could be designing robots for industry or for healthcare or for retail or for the home. I think the home is really where I care most about. But yeah, what you said a moment ago about designing for entertainment and then designing for the real world, I think is super interesting, because I can't remember. I think it was, I never know how to pronounce their name, but Blau Films. They have some great assets and they do some really cool interviews with people. One of the questions that they asked me was about Duke, one of my personal projects, and would I ever be interested in bringing that to life? And I don't know if anybody's seen it, but go and take a look at it. The answer is no, and you'll probably see why the answer is no. And the reason why is because I think the purpose of why you're designing the thing that you're designing is super important. So if you're designing something for the real world and you bear that context in mind, especially if you're going into the home, what's the kind of thing that you want to put in your home, especially if it's, you know, if it's walking around and doing certain things. And even when it's not walking around, you know, you go down in the middle of the night to get a glass of water. What's it doing? You know, is it stood in the corner staring at you? But if you're designing a robot for films, then, you know, then that has a whole different purpose, right? You're a storyteller, and your job is to, maybe your particular job is to, you know, create an antagonist, rather than, but you're designing a robot for the home and you want to create something a bit more, you know, relatable or friendly. So I think, to bring it to your original question, I think remind me what your original question was.
Why is design important to you? No, this is all good. Like, yeah, keep going. This is important.
Yeah. So, and I think the point that I'm trying to make is that design needs to serve a purpose, and only good design can really do that, I think, or only good design can do it well. So if the purpose is to design robots for film, then your job essentially is to tell a story and allow people to escape for an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it is, to forget the realities of life. Or if your job is an industrial designer bringing a real world robot to fruition, your job, if it's in the home, for example, is to create something that people feel comfortable around. And when you like start to have conversations with people around what it is that you're actually doing, these things that you're going to put in people's homes, you start to realize the sort of gravity of the responsibility that you have. Like I say, just little, you know, nuanced things, like I say, going down to get a glass of water. Is it cleaning your kitchen at 3 o'clock in the morning, or is it stood in the corner? And both could be equally creepy. What is it doing when it's not doing anything? And so I think being aware of who you're designing for and why you're creating the thing that you're creating is super important. And it's something that I've battled with, because the thing that, you know, the design philosophy that I have at Apptronik and that the team has is wildly different to a lot of the robots that I've designed just for fun. And I've struggled with that because it seems kind of nonsensical in a way to design something so aggressive, to go to the complete opposite end of the spectrum. But I think the reason why you're doing what you're doing is the key thing to always bear in mind. I'm not sure if that answers the question.
Yeah,
but
no, it does. Like, I love it. I can relate.
All kinds of tangents. So
No, it's great. Like, I can relate to that on so many levels. And I was just thinking though, even though, I'm used to designing for fiction, I think it's interesting, the storytelling aspect, because like you hit the nail on the head, like with, your design for Duke, like you wouldn't want that in your home. And it's funny, like I love to design, brutalist cold spaces. Like I love doing it. And sometimes I don't even know why, but it's like, then people ask me sometimes like, oh, your house must be, all concrete or, minimalist. And it's like, no, not at all. Like if I could design my own house, it would probably actually be warm and like full of timber and like probably more cluttered and ornate. Like it's funny. You're spot on with, it depends who you're designing for. And yeah, I guess like why, and it's probably getting even deeper, but yeah, why do you love to design? Why do you love designing? Like, if you want to elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, I think my answer is probably at least half cliche. I think it's the same thing that everybody says. They were very creative as children. They like to draw, they like to paint, they like to, whatever. I think that's really where it all started. And my journey with it has been kind of a strange one. In that, I don't come from a family that have abnormal jobs. We're very normal people, so I got completely lucky in realizing that you could do something creative for a living. I was joking with my fiance, I say it all the time, but like I feel like this life wasn't meant for me. Like when they were assigning things up there, like they got me mixed up, because it feels like I just got completely lucky with realizing that you can do this kind of stuff for a living. And just when I was around 11 or 12, I really started to enjoy cars, really got into cars. And so I wanted to be a car designer. And then that very quickly, when I was 15 or 16, became, I wanted to design products because of the work that Johnny Ive and his team and Steve Jobs were doing at Apple. And again, that's another very cliche thing that's sort of half embarrassing to say these days, but it is the truth. I remember my friend at school brought the iPad Nano in. It was this, stainless steel back with the white glass front, and weirdly, I'd never even heard of an iPod before I'd seen this thing, so to hold it in my hand and play with it was just the strangest. I don't know if my brain was rewired in that moment, but that was a real pivotal moment. And then not long after that, the school that I was at set up a iMac suite, and it was the iMac with the dome base and this really sort of intricate, again, I think it was a stainless steel mechanism that just allows the screen to float. And it was a completely, I don't want to be over dramatic about it, but it was life changing. And so I pivoted from car design to wanting to do product design. And lucky for me, the subjects that I'd chosen were, they're more or less the same thing. And I applied to a bunch of schools, and again, I feel very lucky that I got into the school that I did. And I mean that genuinely, because I just about got in, somehow on a fine art portfolio. And like I say, I think it was from the very beginning, I just always had that creative streak that a bunch of kids do. But I think I was lucky in a way that my parents were never there was never really any expectation for any of us. It was, if you move out and you get a job and you get your own place to live, then you're successful. And so there was never really any pressure to, go and be an accountant or a lawyer or whatever, a doctor. So I was able to just pursue whatever it was that I wanted to, and I feel very lucky that I seem to have stumbled on some kind of purpose. And I know you and I have spoken about this in the past. It's when you experience that and you feel fulfillment from the work that you're creating, you just want everybody to feel that at least once in their lives, right? And it's something that we speak a lot about at Apptronik, weirdly enough, in that we as people are tool makers, and not just tool makers but art makers as well. For as long as civilization has been around, it's something that's innately human to create art, and I don't think any of us have really figured out why, but it's something that we continue to do. And like I say, I feel very lucky that I'm one of those people, but also able to make a living from it, and to be able to do it in such a crazy space is, it's a privilege.
I love like some of the things that you touched on, like that childlike urge to create, that thing within us that we can't really explain. And I know we've talked about it in the past, and it's like I think we've had our own challenges with it. Like I know personally, like I've been through struggles where I was like, oh, why does it even matter that I create? Who's going to care about this? I should just stop doing it. I should pack it all in. Why should I should just get like a normal job. But yeah, I think there's just something within us that sometimes like we just don't need to question, like you've just touched on, and just follow that urge that is like, within us. It's like probably something primitive that we can't even explain. And I think it's just, we, like you said, we're very lucky and fortunate that we live in the time that we can pursue these careers. And I think it's super cool. And it's like one of the reasons why I'm even doing this podcast is to share stories like this, because I want people to feel what I've felt, like that level of fulfillment that you were just talking about. Like I think it's, the best thing in the world is to be able to make a living doing what you love to do, and not really, feeling like a job. So you hit a lot of, points that really resonate with me, and I'm sure they'll resonate with a lot of other people. And circling back to something you talked about with like the Apple stuff, and that really resonated to you. And I was just thinking, like, there's such like, Apple's, is visionary because of like their minimalist stuff and how they managed to engineer things and make this technology fit within these, slim, beautiful designs. Like, it makes me think about like design taste, and it's a really tricky one. Like a lot of us gravitate towards like, minimalist, beautiful, pure designs. Like I guess, how can I frame this question? How do you acquire good taste? Because like some people that maybe are better with their technical skills but want to become a better designer struggle with that question, because it can be quite vague. In your opinion, like how do you become a better designer? How do you acquire good taste? Like what steps could people take to improving that side of their skills?
I don't know if I know how to answer that question, because it's so subjective, right? Taste. It is a good question. I think this is my approach anyway, is the more that you understand about how something was made, or the thought process that went into an object, the more you can appreciate it beyond just the fact that it looks pretty, or or it's expensive or whatever, right? It's if for example, to go back to the Apple stuff, right? I now have a newfound appreciation for just how difficult it is to make any product whatsoever, and make it in the thousands or tens of thousands or millions as Apple do. And I think you know, because you mentioned packing a bunch of technology into such a small space, and I think, again, acquiring like an understanding of how things are made and why things were done a particular way is probably the first step. Again, I'm saying this like I'm proclaiming to have good taste. I don't know.
You
I
do.
think like, oh, thank you. I think authenticity is probably more important though. I think if something resonates with you, that's far more important than liking something because you think you're supposed to like it, right? Like there are lots of things that a bunch of people like that have never really. It happens more so when you have, you know, whether it is imposter syndrome or you have insecurities. For me, when I went to design school, I felt like I was a year or two behind everybody, like listening to everybody riff off, you know, designers and artists and different products and things that I'd never heard of, and I just felt like I was completely behind or I was uncultured. It's yeah, I've never really grown out of that. I think I think authenticity is probably a more important thing to pay attention to. And if you like something, then you like it, and if you don't, then you don't. And I would much rather somebody, as I say, have a deep appreciation for the things that they care about, and as a result of that, gravitate towards the things that you like. And even design philosophy, or philosophy in general. I think if you were to develop your own understanding of what's important to you, I mean, I feel like over the last 2.5 years at this company that my entire worldview has changed because you're forced to think about really deep things every day, because again, you're sort of faced with the reality that the things that we're doing over the next 5 years could shape, you know, in our own small way, could shape the world for the next 50 years. And only through really difficult conversations about design philosophy and what are our principles and what is it that we stand for, and what is it that we think everybody's doing wrong and what can we do differently, like who are we serving, you know, who are we making our products for, and as a result of that, there are certain things that I like and certain things that I don't like. But then, you know, you could enter into a different space like the film industry and start to like certain characters, like Darth Vader, right? Like if Darth Vader was a robot, I personally wouldn't want to bring Darth Vader to reality. I think that would be in bad taste. But as a film goer and as an appreciation of, you know, the art form, I think as a character he's probably arguably the single greatest villain, you know, ever. But the aesthetic there is tasteful, right? So I think I don't know, I'm going around in circles here, but I think that, like I say, I think authenticity is far more important than acquiring a taste based on what you think people are supposed to like. Yeah, I'll leave it there.
I can't wait to clip that bit off, because I never thought of like putting it in that way, like authenticity, like what a brilliant way to sum it up. And again, I can resonate with that on so many levels, because something I've tried to preach is for people to just follow what they love or what they're drawn to, because I feel like the more genuine you are to yourself and what you're interested in is only going to lead you down a more fulfilling and successful path. Like I know everybody's path is different, but my path really only changed when I doubled down on what I did, which was architecture, and until I stopped trying to copy others and what I thought was cool or what other people thought was trendy. And, you know, it almost sounds childish, but I had to almost block out everything on social media of any other artworks or any other artists, and just to really just get into my own head and try and find what I loved. And I feel like that's just really helped me for my career. And I think the same thing with you. Like, you're the perfect example of that. Like, following what you're drawn to, designing what you want to create, and eventually there's just going to be somebody out there that resonates with what you've created. And then look what happens. Like, opportunities come knocking at your door that you never thought would have even existed. So yeah, I thought I couldn't have put it in a better way than what you just did. And something to circle back a bit too that you briefly touched on as well, and like being exposed to, you know, real world design and how it's changed your perspective on certain design elements and requirements. Something I think people always try to find the right balance between, or have weight towards one or the other, is like form and function. And, you know, I have the same battles all the time between, you know, making something beautiful, but then also practical. Yeah. What's your approach to, like, whether it's maybe more so with your personal work, like, do you give weight to one of those and the other? How do you try to find the marriage between the two? Did you want to talk a little bit about form and function?
Yeah, the personal work is probably the easiest question to answer, and then I can talk about it for real world.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Far more difficult, but far more important as well. I think actually it's only having been designing things for the real world for these last few years that has given me the lease of life that I needed on personal work to allow myself to explore form more than function. Because if you spend all day every day with, you know, real world constraints, and then you want to create art in the evenings and on the weekends, then you don't want to over constrain yourself again. But it's an interesting balance though, because constraints, as from, you know, what I've realized over the last few years, is that it's actually those constraints that sort of brew creativity in a way. Like, you're forced to be more creative than you would have been if you hadn't been boxed in a little bit. But on the personal work, I think there's still a balance to be struck, but you can definitely lean more towards form. And I think perceived functionality is more important than functionality, because in the end, if your job is to deliver an image or an animation, that is the product. And it doesn't need to be functional. It needs to serve a purpose. And so long as it serves the purpose of, I don't know, there's a bunch of reasons why you might want to create art, right? And so I think being aware of how things are manufactured and how things function, whether you're designing a robot or whether you are designing, you know, an architectural interior or exterior, having an understanding of how things are made and how they function will only serve to improve the work that you do. But beyond that, I think it's fine to just be creative and just be exploratory, because again, for the real world, there are so many constraints and so many challenges to overcome, that it's taught me to be grateful for the times where you don't have those challenges. But the thing is with industrial design is that the bridge between form and function is our job. That's our job. If you put form and function on a spectrum, right, and you say that form is represented by art, whether it's painters or sculptors or whatever, and function can be represented by engineering, then industrial design, or design in general, should sit between those two things. It should bridge the gap between art and engineering. In a way, it's your duty. And again, to relate it to real world products, if you have, no offense to engineers, but if you have an engineer design a product that will be purely function, and it will very likely function well, but it might be over engineered, it might be expensive, it might be ugly, the materials might be too brutal, the user experience might be terrible, it might just all round be an undesirable product. Like, serves a great function, but nobody will buy it. And a product that serves function really well but nobody buys it is a bad product. But the inverse is true too, in that a product that is, you know, incredibly elegant and the materials are beautiful and you want to purchase it based solely on aesthetics, and then you buy it and it's actually terrible. I mean, we've all been there, right? We've all bought a product because it looked great in the image and it either broke after a week or just wasn't as good as we thought it was. And so, yeah, as I say, as a good industrial designer, your job is to bridge that gap between the two. And it just makes it all the more impressive. I know we keep banging on about Apple, but they are still the gold standard in terms of build quality and material choices and user experience. And they're not just products that are easy to use. That was the benchmark a long time ago, and it's been and gone. And the benchmark now is a delightful user experience where people want to use your product. It's not enough now to just have the product serve a purpose and it be user friendly. It now has to improve your day, and you have to want to look forward to using it again the next day. And I think that's the job of a designer. I don't think you can choose. I don't think you can choose between form or function as a designer. Yeah, because you can't have one without the other. Like I say, a bad product is equally something that looks great but doesn't work well, and something that works well but is undesirable.
Yeah, that's again, you just dropped so much gold in that. And something I was just thinking about, I think is so important too, is that people forget about, in whatever industry it is, whatever design field, is like collaboration is key. And like there's always going to be multiple voices or different people that you work with that are going to have input into whatever it is that you're doing. And that's what the design process is. It's like a back and forth between you and whoever you're working with and other teams to bring something to life. And it's the same, it's like you just said, it's the same with architecture. Like we're trying to make things look good, but then we're also trying to, satisfy the brief and the needs of the client. But then there's also, mechanical engineers, structural engineers, and they have to have things that go into this to make it work. And I think it's always important for aspiring designers or artists or whatever it is that you want to do to remember that, like what you've just mentioned. Because if you want to do this as well as a job, you always got to remember that you have to reduce your ego sometimes and realize that you're going to be working with other people. Like the film version of that is, you're going to be working with a production designer and a director, and it's going to be like storyboard artists and producers, and people are going to have all these different inputs and requirements that are going to, I guess, mold and shape whatever it is that you're doing. I think it was so good to just hear from somebody that works, in the real world, dealing with different teams and different people and I guess for you, bringing something actually to life.
Can I just say something on that? Because the collaboration thing is super important to not just be able to collaborate with other people on like a human level. Like, because you mentioned ego. Yeah, you absolutely have to leave your ego at the door to understand that the thing that you're making is much bigger than you. Because I think a lot of people can have like you want to have a sense of ownership over the work that you're doing, don't you? But you can never bring anything meaningful to the world just on your own. You can't do it, whether it is a film or whether it's a game or whether it's a product. There's hundreds or thousands of people that all have to be facing the same direction to be able to do that, right? And so being wanting to collaborate with other people is one thing, but then being able to, in terms of, are you able to speak the same language as a systems engineer or a mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, a product manager, a software guy, or like you say, like a director, a production designer, even the costume, the people that make the props at the end of the day. Like, are you able to? I don't know enough. I'm like putting.
No, you're nailing it.
Understanding enough about. I think it was Christopher Nolan, right, that said that he as a director needs to understand enough about everybody's job in order for himself to be the best director that he possibly can. Like, he needs to, understand rigging and lighting and how to operate a camera and all these things, and it's completely true I think it's true about any profession, really. You should understand the roles of the people around you, to use the same verbiage as them, to sort of empathize with people in a way that, because a lot of it, especially in hardware development, a lot of it is empathy and understanding where other people are coming from, in that you're going to have disagreements 100%, and you're probably going to do it every week or every day. And so trying to see their point of view first off, and then by doing that, bringing them around to your way of thinking, if you think that it's for the benefit of the product or the film or whatever it is that you're making. I wanted to double down on that because collaboration is super important for anything. But yeah, and you make a great point that it's only possible if you check your ego. You can't just be about you and what you want, right? It's got to be to the benefit of this much bigger thing that you're working on together.
Yeah, I think it's like the novice mistake is always getting offended when somebody asks for a change, and getting upset that someone doesn't like something that you've presented. But I think we forget that, in my opinion anyway, an important part of being a designer and a creative in a professional sense is being a sponge, like taking in as much information as you can from other professions and people around you, being able to listen and learn, and not just kind of stick your nose up at something that isn't something necessarily that you agree with. And kind of on this topic, I think it'd be really cool to hear from someone like you, because you basically have become like head of design for this big company, and you had to put together, I guess, a team, and you're somebody now that's in a position that actually has to hire other artists and designers. And I think it would be super valuable for people to hear, like, what are some things that you would have gotten, I imagine, heaps of portfolios sent through to you when you were looking for people to join your team. What are some, like, what do you look for when people send through these portfolios? Like, what stands out to you?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna expose myself here a little bit. For me, I think people say that you have maybe like 30 seconds to grab somebody's attention. Like, it is way less with me, I think, which is probably not a good thing. For me, I feel like I've already made a decision on somebody within the first 10 seconds, or not made a decision, but there's gates, right? And to get through the first gate is around 10 seconds. So you have to put your best foot forward immediately. You have to grab the attention of whoever it is that you imagine is going to be looking at your work. And it's funny, the first thing that I'm looking for is good taste, which is now ironic. But and it's you're right. I mean, I think that the team now has gone from nothing to just on Friday we offered we bring in our 9th designer onto the team, and then in a couple of months it'll be 10. So it's growing pretty quick. And I think for me in this space, it's very unreasonable to ask that industrial designers have robotics experience, and so I'm not necessarily looking for like robotics experience, but more so potential in the space. And actually, there's when I think about it, I would actually rather not have somebody with robotics experience, in that I would rather they not come with baggage or have preconceived notions of what you can and can't do in the space. I would rather somebody come in naive, I guess is the right word. I'd rather them not know what is possible and what's not, and challenge everything and ask stupid questions. And so yeah, I think the first thing that I'm looking for is good taste, and it goes beyond just the quality of the work, but the copy, the text that they include, or lack of text, that's also super important. The layouts, and it sounds like a bit superficial, but you can tell a lot, I think, by how much care and attention somebody puts into the small things. And if you don't care about your I suppose it's different in the film space, right? Because most people getting work through like ArtStation. Do you have a physical portfolio or like a PDF that you send to people?
It's changed a lot. It used to be the ArtStation thing. That's how I got a lot of my work. But now I think it's more so like who you know really, and networking, and if you're being recommended by other artists or people that you've worked with in the past for projects. It has shifted a lot, but it was your physical portfolio, like your PDF or your online portfolio before.
Right. So maybe a lot of what I've said isn't relevant for people.
No, it's still good, because I think one of the key reasons of having someone like you on is for people to understand that we don't live in a vacuum as designers and creatives, and there's other opportunities out there, and you're a perfect example of that. Like, you don't just have to work in the film and entertainment industry. There's a lot of opportunities out there, and I think there's going to be probably more of that in the future as film starts to kind of shrivel up a little bit as well. So yeah, keep going.
Yeah, I think, and this is like I said, I'll rather than focusing on like layout and stuff, I feel like that's such a dumb answer to that question. Like, oh yeah, just I care about the layout of the portfolio. But I'm trying to get to like the crux of what it is, because it's not a question that I've asked myself. So I'm like thinking out loud here about what it is that I'm looking for. But I think it is care and attention. Like, how much care and attention have you put into something that represents you? Because if you can't do that, how much care and attention are you going to put into something that is the accumulation of, hundreds or thousands of people? And a curiosity, I think, is more important than... I think I get a lot from the interviews with people, and the portfolio is just a way of getting a foot in the door, and then having conversations with people is far more important to me, to get an understanding of how it is that their brain works. Like, if you want to get into... I can only use the robotics space as as an example. If you want to get into robotics because it's the latest hype, the latest trend, then I'm not interested. If you want to get into robotics because you see the potential that it has to, improve people's lives, whether it's through healthcare or the home or, wherever, that's something I'm far more interested in. And then if that accompanied by excellent skill set, then great, we're on to a winning formula. And then you can start getting into, trying to understand people's design philosophy and the way that it is that they think about certain things. Like, one of the questions that I ask, I won't give the answer away, but one of the questions that I ask is, what do they think the rest of the industry is doing wrong? I included Apptronik in that, because what's cool is all the stuff that's available online is now 3 years old, and so everybody... I find it... I'm going off on a tangent here, but I find it must be super weird to see the work on Apptronik's website and in all the press release, and see how much investment the company is gaining, because we just closed a $1 billion Series A round and now valued at $5 billion. And and if it was me going on, Apptronik's website or looking at the press release, I would be scratching my head thinking, how have you raised $1 billion? But it's because all the investors that have invested can see everything going on behind the scenes, right? So I include Apptronik in that question. Like, what do you think the industry is doing wrong? I'm looking for something very specific, because I have a very specific view on what I think the industry is doing wrong. And I'm equally as interested in, like I say, why it is that they want to get into the space. There's some really bizarre answers that I get that sort of... Originally I thought things were going well, and the answer to that question can sort of ruin things for them, unfortunately. But I don't know if that answers your question.
No,
it's a good one.
It does.
I've never asked that to myself, so I'm kind of thinking out loud here, processing it.
Brought up a lot of interesting points, and it's funny, like you thought that the layout thing wasn't necessary, but I think it is, like, because again, it kind of comes back to the taste thing, and it is important. Like, we don't know what it is, but just the way somebody presents their portfolio or a series of images or whatever it is that they do, like, putting that extra care and effort into something is that bit of difference that might make somebody look at your stuff as opposed to flicking past it. Like I think
Yeah,
all of
it's a
those
craftsmanship.
yeah,
Right?
yeah. And it's like all those small soft skills outside of your actual, artwork or your design skills that really do matter. And what you've said too about hiring, I mean, talking to the person in the interview is the other thing that I think people don't realize. Like I was speaking with a director, and this director said, you have to remember that I'm speaking for them, I'm hiring a person. They're not hiring the artwork first and foremost. Like they want to know what that person is like and what their interests are and see how they respond to things like feedback and their design approach. And can they do simple things like take orders to, or direction to make changes? Because I've heard this director was saying like some artists, the ones that are no good on their projects are the ones that freeze up and don't know what to do and they don't know how to implement or take feedback. So it's actually just going in parallel with what you're saying. And I think there's so much valuable stuff from people to gain from what you just said.
I think you just put it way far better than I did. In that the work is one thing, but the person behind the work is equally, if not more important. Like you have to be skilled enough to do the job, right? But you have to also be somebody that whoever's hiring you is going to be able to work with. I mean, I think we've probably all worked with designers who, very, very skilled, but make it impossible to work with them. Yeah, I'm going to be thinking a lot about this after.
That's good. No, it's good. There's so much good stuff, and it's important, I think, even for me to just talk about these things because they serve as a good reminder, I think, and as a good thing to check yourself with. Because, like, I've been on, films too, and I don't mean this in a bad way. It sounds bad, but like I've seen people's work, and I've like never really heard of them, and they're on this film that I'm on, and they're pumping out all this work, and I'm like, oh yeah, their work's okay. Like it looks okay. Like, and not in a bad way. Like their design sense is really good, but in terms of like their technical skills, it's not like the latest and greatest Blender renders and all of that. But then you start to understand that this person is really good at implementing feedback, and they know how to take direction really well, and they know to deliver things before deadlines and never miss deadlines. And it's like all of those other things is what makes that person a go-to for a certain production designer or a director. And that's why those sorts of people, they just end up on all of the cool jobs and have all of the cool jobs because they nail those fundamentals first and foremost. And I guess talking about that stuff, I know you and I have had really good chats about this in the past. So then let's talk about, technical skills versus design skills, because that's a really juicy one, because a lot of people get obsessed with like the latest and greatest in technology and the fanciest Blender render. But yeah, how do you navigate, the two? I know like probably your answer, but what's more important, having beautiful technical skills or good design skills?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a question. Good design skills is the answer. The reason why I paused there is because they're both important. That's not to say that, presentation skills aren't important. They are, because I think it's a sad reality, but it is true that a good design, poorly presented, can be killed immediately. With a average, if not mediocre, design could go the whole way because the visuals are beautiful. The trick is both, right? The trick is you want a great design beautifully presented, and it'll be seen in the light that it should be. And it's just, again, it's like the same thing that we were talking about interviews, like just getting the foot in the door, getting people interested, and then as they dig deeper, because there's like, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you are the CEO of, I don't know, Megacorp, whatever, I don't know, or like a banker, or if you are a movie director, or if you're an artist. Everybody is human, and everybody's emotions can be tapped into through beautiful artwork. And that's the first thing that you have to do, right? You have to get people interested. And so the visuals are super, super important, but the design has to then be able to stand on its own 2 feet. It can't just be visuals. So if I was to pick one, design skills are far more important than technical, presentation skills or visuals. But that's not to say that it's not important. And also, like, the tools definitely aren't important. I think that's something to highlight. One of the things that to be honest with you, I don't really want to get into the whole AI thing, but it is just a tool that will, I don't know if it will go, but it's come, and I don't know. It probably will go, to be honest. I think it will. One of the things that I'm liking is that everyday people know what generative AI is, and they know that it's slop, right? Weirdly enough, I think it was... I've said that I didn't want to get into this, and here I am getting...
Go for it.
Weirdly enough, I think it was Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, who said that that people don't care about generative AI creating art, because what people really care about is that little signature in the corner of artworks, for whatever reason. And I love it. I hope it is true. I hope everybody shares this sentiment. That is what people care about. Again, it's this innate human need to create things and to appreciate things that other humans have created. Otherwise, it's meaningless, completely meaningless. I will pause there because I don't want this to devolve AI thing. But the tools aren't important. One of the things that you know how big of a fan I am of Vitaly Bulgarov, and I'm sure everybody listening is as well. I mean, he's still using Softimage, right? And Moi, and I mean, you can't even get Softimage anymore. I don't even think you can torrent Softimage anymore. And he's still churning out some of the best artworks and concept design pieces anywhere, right? And it's cool to like stay on top of new things if it's going to like improve your work or make you both quicker and better. I don't know. Like, it's cool to stay on top of that stuff, but I think the work is more important. I mean, I think I've known a bunch of people that obsess over I'm going to try Cinema 4D, and I know this other guy who's using Blender, so I'm going to jump over to Blender, and I don't know. I've only ever switched tools when there's a real reason to. Like, I hated 3ds Max. Hated it. I hope nobody from Autodesk is watching this. So I had to make the jump to Blender, but that's the only thing I've changed. Like, Moi has been a big part of my workflow for 8 years now, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah, I think it's... there's so many good points there. So where can I start? So on your latest one with you're a great example, I think, of the tools are just tools, because, and I mean this in a complimentary way, but you've switched tools, and from the outside observer, you wouldn't even know that, because you have a design language, you have an identity, like your designs stand out, like I can tell, like it's a Shaun Wellens design, like you've developed, like, whether it's consciously or not, like this brand through your design taste and your design skills, and the tools are irrelevant. Like, your designs are good because they're just good designs. But at the same time too, you've also always had like the utmost or the most high level technical skills as well. Like, and I think that's something that I admire about you, is like, you're not only like this incredible designer, but you have incredible visualization skills. And I think, like you said, you kind of need both. Design is far more important because that's what makes you, I guess, stand out. But you also need then great execution skills, especially if you're earlier in your journey and you're more trying to get your foot in the door, because you almost got to think of it to as a way to kind of lure someone in. Like there's got to be a hook at the end of the day. Somebody has to stop, like you said with the portfolios. Somebody has to stop beyond 10 seconds to look at your work, and that's, I guess, where the technical skills come to play. So I guess while I'm saying that and while I'm rambling on, I'm thinking about it that I guess it depends, doesn't it, about what stage of your journey you're in.
Yeah, 100%. And because first off, I want to say you've said a lot of nice things about me. I'm not saying thank you to anybody. So thank you. I appreciate it.
That's okay.
And two things I think with the tools. The first is that you want whatever tool you're using, whether it's a pencil or a 3D program, to be an extension of your hand and your mind, right? That's what you want. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that you don't want whatever tool you're using to be a hindrance to whatever's in your mind, right? Like you don't want the design at the end of the day to be driven purely by your limited knowledge of a tool. And equally, you want to understand the tool well enough to execute on what's in your head, right? So it's important in that sense. I think the best advice that I can give on that is don't try and design and learn a tool at the same time. I wouldn't even do that. Just, if you're learning like a poly modeling tool, think about what kind of forms it is that you want to know how to create. Like what forms resonate with you? Is it more organic shapes, or is it, or is it more brutalism? I know that resonates a lot with you. And just try to recreate. You don't have to share everything. It's fine to create work that just lives on a hard drive or in a sketchbook. Don't try and design and learn a tool at the same time. Just learn the tool well enough to be able to do the kind of work that you want to do. And only when you're in that sort of, when you know where the buttons are and you've got the key binds nailed down and you just, you're getting the reps in, only then start using it in your workflow. I'm looking to pick up plasticity. I've been seeing a lot of stuff on that recently, and I'm looking at it as like a replacement for Moi. Just because, I don't know, maybe it's better. It looks better. And the features in there, there's a feature in there called X-NURBS, which is a surfacing extension. People are saying that you can get Class A surfacing out of plasticity. And so I'm like, that's super interesting. So there's a very clear reason as to why I would want to shift to a different tool there. But I wouldn't jump into plasticity and try and, design something for myself. I'd probably pick an object off my desk and just see if I could model that. Yeah,
that's really good advice. I think something else you mentioned that is really important too is, you don't always have to create something for the sake of sharing it. I think it's important to test the different tools so they can help you bring whatever your vision it is to life. And whatever tool does that is the right tool for you. You don't have to just jump onto things for trends and for trends' sake. Like you're saying, you've been using Moi for, 8 years or something like that, because it serves a purpose for you and it helps you execute what's in your mind. All great advice. Oh yeah, go.
Yeah, sorry. Before we move, because the other thing is that it's also it's cool to just if you really love it, right? And it's not, you're coming home from work and you're doing it. When I first graduated from school, I was working at a vacuum cleaner company. I was doing product viz for a vacuum cleaner company in the UK. And I would go home at 5 o'clock, and from 6 o'clock until midnight I was working on my own thing. I was learning 3ds Max and V-Ray, and I was following along with there's an artist called Grant Warwick, who was going in deep on shader creation. Had a full course on how to create really detailed shaders in 3ds Max, and I had no purpose for that other than that it was just fun and I loved doing it and it was exciting, right? So I think I just wanted to caveat what I said about there needing to be like a reason to pick up a new tool versus it just being like a trend or whatever. Because there are some things like Unreal Engine. Take Unreal Engine for example. I can't claim to know Unreal Engine. I've dived in and out of it probably like 3 or 4 times over the last 4 years. Every time I have to relearn it. But every time I jump in, it's like this magical experience. It's very, very unique compared to, you know, Cycles or Keyshot or 3ds Max and V-Ray, whatever it is. I know it's a completely different. It's a real time engine, right? It's a game engine. And I think that's probably what it is. It feels like a game. And so the idea that this is like a creative tool for making art or building worlds or visualizing, one of your designs, but it feels like a game is like super interesting. And especially at the time, I think still now you can pull in Megascans assets and start, pushing and pulling things around. It's okay to like do things for fun too, right? Not everything has to be for the benefit of progress or to go in your portfolio or for work or whatever. You can do things for fun too. I just wanted to say that because I didn't want anybody to be put off by like picking up a new tool for the sake of it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I'm glad you brought that up because I think we all fall into that trap sometimes. Like I know I'm a perfect example of that. Like I always think, I've got to be progressing or I have to be learning, this new tool and I've got to be upskilling. And sometimes it's just like, you need to take a step back and remember that you just like to create for the sake of creating and there's nothing wrong with that. Nobody else has to see it. It doesn't matter what tool, like do whatever it is that makes you feel good at the end of the day. Like I think social media has created I think a bit of that anxiety that we always feel like we need to share what we're doing and we're always needing to progress. And it's one of the reasons why I did the opposite and I started drawing by hand a lot more is because I forgot how much I enjoyed it. And, it was just super important to bring that back into my routine, like just to get back that childlike urge to create. I think what would be cool to also get an insight into with your process, because I've been privileged to see it too, is, and maybe it's more so again, maybe for your personal work, is like how you start a project. Because your approach to references and how you start building a story, like I think is inspiring. Like everything from my perspective when I see it is so meticulously thought about and so well crafted. And did you want to give a little bit of an insight into like how you might start a project, or like how do you find inspiration? Where does it all start for like some of your personal pieces?
Yeah, in terms of inspiration, I think I prefer to rely on things that I'm familiar with that have always inspired me. A lot of my work is inspired by 60s and 70s space travel, right? I think that's, and I know a lot of it's a whole aesthetic in itself, but combining that with other things, other influences, whether you're conscious of those influences or not is another thing. But yeah, I prefer to rely on things that have always resonated with me, and again in like the goal of trying to be as authentic as possible. It's super important to me. And in terms of like kicking off a project, I don't know, this is always a weird one for me. I've never really been like I've never, a lot of people like to sketch a lot of ideas and ideate a lot of ideas, and that's definitely something that I need to improve on. But for my personal work, it's typically I go out for a walk every day and I do a lot of writing whilst I'm walking on my phone, and then a lot of the times I'll rewrite a lot of that stuff in my notebook because I read somewhere a long time ago that it's writing by hand helps you to absorb information better. But also just reiterates, I don't know, it helps me to remember some of those ideas that I've had rather than being lost in a note app somewhere. But it's usually just while I'm walking that I start to like form an idea. I think that's where some of my favorite projects have come from, and it's where a lot of the a lot of my solutions to problems that I've struggled with for days or weeks come from is just by going out for a walk and, you know, mulling it over, and by the time I get home it's solved, or the next morning. Yeah, and it usually just starts with me like playing around with an idea in my head. And I know that sounds super weird. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe a lot of people can empathize with that. I hope so. But that's typically how it starts. And then actually like getting the project kicked off is probably the single hardest part. Because once something's in motion, it's very easy to find an hour or two after work, or, you know, or I don't know. There's been in my most recent one, there was just weekends that I poured into it, which was great. But it's still really difficult to do that if the wheels aren't already turning. And so just getting something down on paper, figuratively, literally or figuratively, is the single hardest thing. And weirdly enough, you know, it can be. I don't know if everyone will have. I doubt everyone will have seen my latest thing, but you've seen it. The Botanic Analysis T200. Even I can't say it. It's most of the work was done in the original block out, right? Getting like the graphical shapes in place, getting the balance of the forms in the right place, and just trying to get an idea out of my head and onto paper. And then after that, then it's, you know, then you're relying on all of the references that you've built up in your head and all of your inspirations over the last however many years, to just start working through problems and details. And before you know it, it's done, and you can start adding storytelling elements, which is probably my favorite part of the project, right at the end, is personalization and storytelling. But yeah, there's nothing special there, I don't think. I think if there's anything that might separate my work from others, is that I probably don't stop when I should, and there's always something more to just keep adding another lacquer until I'm happy with it. Because for me, there's no point, if you're going to share work, it may as well be the best possible work that you can show. And that doesn't mean that like your best today is going to be your best tomorrow. It shouldn't be. Like every project you do should feel like this is the best thing that I've ever done. But you can be, if you put out work that is as good as it possibly can be on that day, then you can be proud of that, and then you can move forward. Versus putting work out there, sharing things with the world where you're like, I know that could have been better if I'd have just put more time into it. And for me, I've done that a few times, and I just think, well, why didn't you just put more time into it? And most of the time it's fatigue, and we were speaking about this a few weeks ago, right? I had a real breakthrough moment where I realized that personal work, like the whole purpose of personal work for me was because I loved doing it, and I kind of had to reclaim that in a way, because it started to feel like a second job for a long time. And it was only through taking a step back and reassessing that and realizing, like, no, this can be my thing. This can be the thing that I do in the evenings. It can relax me. It doesn't have to stress me out. I don't have to get frustrated by it. If I sit at the computer for 5 hours working on a personal project after work, and I make no progress, okay, all right, well, it's not a big deal. I had music on, you know, I had tea or whatever, right? Like, I had a good time. And just recognizing, like, oh, how privileged am I that I get to create art? Not many people get to do that. Many people wish that they even knew where to begin. So, yeah, I don't know. That sounds super hippie-ish, but...
No, I think that's really important for people to hear, especially, and it's more timely than ever, because there's multiple reasons, but one reason is we've become a little bit too obsessed with speed. And I think a lot of that, again, comes back to the anxiety of social media and feel like we have to share stuff all the time. But I think it's so good to hear from someone like you that importance of, A, just doing something for yourself and take the pressure off. B, taking your time and just enjoying it. And then C is putting your best foot forward and trying to create something from quality and not rushing all the time, because I think I'm guilty of it too, whereas rushing and I've got to get this out sooner rather than later. But sometimes it's important to just enjoy the process and try and create something that you're proud of, especially in this day and age where everything is just about get it out as quick as you can, and like with tools getting faster and quicker. Like I think it's sometimes important to push back against that, because the more time you spend on something sometimes is important, because you can think deeper about things and think about your decisions that you're making, and also through that process you understand a lot more about yourself and what you like. I think that was really inspiring to hear. And I think to like kind of slowly start to, wrap this up, is I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I think because you're in this really unique position that you've created for yourself of, being head of design for, a robotics company, and seeing how important design is in society. Like, what do you see? Like, I know nobody has a glass ball they can look in and see the future, but how important do you think designers will be in the future, especially with all these technological advancements that we're talking about and how jobs are being replaced? But where do you see the role of designers in the near future, let's say?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I do think that it's not enough to create an image anymore. I do think that is true. And I think that people should use that as fuel to be more than just an image generation tool. I think that's when you kind of have to separate art and design a little bit, at least for me. And I'm still trying to figure out what the difference is between art and design. But art, this is as far as I've gone with it. Art feels, it doesn't need to justify itself to anybody, and so it can be for any purpose. It can be because you wanted to create something. It can be to make a political statement. It can be to demonstrate how great of an artist you are. Like, I remember walking around the National Gallery and Buckingham Palace a few months ago. I realised how British I've made myself sound there, but it was an audio guided tour, and they were talking about some of the paintings and just describing how the artist played with light and shadow and how they created textiles. And when you were really getting close to the painting, you could see the sequins on a dress or the threads of or the hairs on the legs of somebody. Just super intricate details. Whoever painted that, I can't remember who it was, never needed to justify the reasons as to why they spent so long creating this masterpiece. It doesn't matter if you like it or not. It doesn't matter if you want answers. The artist isn't obliged to give you any reason as to why they've made this thing. But design is very different in that I think design needs to serve a much bigger purpose. Whether that purpose is storytelling for a film or for a game, or whether design is design for a product or a service, or that's where I think the differentiator will be between designers of the past, where it probably was acceptable to just create an image, and where designers of the future will be valuable, is to be consistently, consciously aware of what it is that you're doing, why you're doing it, and who you're doing it for. I think that will separate a lot of people going forward. I think understanding why you've placed certain things in a scene, what emotions you're trying to evoke, all in the grander context of the thing that you're making. Like understanding, if I guess it would be, because I know you've told me about this before. It can be. I don't know enough about the space, so I'm probably going to make myself look like an idiot. But it can be something like reading the script over and over again, really understanding what the story is, what is the point of the story, like what's the message there, is there a message, I don't know, and absorbing yourself in that space so that you can create the best possible thing that you can that relates to that story, and the bigger thing being allowing people to go to the cinema and escape their reality for 2 hours and come away with some kind of, I don't know, some kind of feeling about the thing that they've just seen. Do you get what I mean? I think it's just not, it's the difference is going to be the people that care more than everybody else. I think is the crux of it.
Yeah, you've put that so masterfully. And that's something that I'm constantly always trying to do when I'm on a job. Like when I'm on a job, that's one thing I try to do, is absorb myself in that script and try and create something that is unique to that moment of time in that story that is being told. And I feel like that's my obligation. That's what I'm being hired to do, is a director or a production designer has this unique vision, and you as a designer coming on board want to make their vision come to life and also be as unique as possible as it can to that story. And I think that's the difference from, a good designer and, an average designer, and how much what's that extra mile someone's going to go to really immerse themselves in the project. And yeah, I couldn't have put that in a better way, man. And I think it's such a great way to wrap up this topic on design. But before I let you go too, I just wanted to ask you and to just let anybody listening know, what they have to look forward to from yourself this year or the years ahead. If you have anything exciting, in the pipelines, or what to look out for.
Yeah, I can only say so much,
Yep.
So I'll try and be careful about what I say. But I spent the first year or so of my time at the company working on our next generation humanoid, which is coming very soon. And I've spent the last 15 months working on our next generation of humanoid robots, which is the first platform that the first piece of hardware that I've been involved at the company from the very beginning. So yeah, and I can't say too much about that, but it's the stuff of dreams to be able to lead this project with the people that I get to work with on this. It's going to be incredible. Very, very difficult, very taxing and stressful, but only because, funnily enough, what we were just speaking about, only because I care. The job could be much easier if I didn't care. But I really care about what it is that we're doing. So yeah, I think the next couple of years are going to be pretty wild, and I'm very excited to be able to share all of that with everybody.
And yeah, I'm equally as excited for you, man. And it's been awesome to be able to share, that journey with you, being a friend. And I know eventually people are going to see it, and it's going to be amazing and incredible. And I can't wait for that day that you do get to share all of the hard work that you've put into this. So, yeah, Shaun, thanks so much, man, for joining me for this chat. I know people are going to get so much from this. It's really inspiring. And yeah, I, as always, take so much from our chat. So thank you, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I know you've said a lot of nice things about me that I feel are undeserved, but I really appreciate it.
They're deserved. And yeah, I'll be definitely putting your links in here so people can check out your work further, because they really should have a look at some seriously good design. Thanks, man. We'll speak soon.
Thank you. See you soon.